All right. Hello, everybody. Glad to see you all again. You might notice that I have a bit different of a setup this time, including giant webcam in the way, because this is the best way I could find to set it up. It's sort of awkward, but thought we'd make sure that you get a better view of rings and clouds, because that's what we're going to do today, is rings into clouds. It was a request. Surprisingly, someone had not heard of it before or not heard it done before. So we're going to do a whole bunch of different things. We're going to do all of the modes of rings, all the modes of clouds. Might even play around with some of the Easter egg mode in rings, a disastrous piece thing, because I've actually never, ever tried that. So we're going to stay away from using too many other modules for this one. We're just going to concentrate on these, well, 3 in this case, because, by the way, I fixed my other nano rings. Turns out it wasn't actually anything wrong with it. It's just really needed to be factory calibrated again. So I did that, and now the tuning knob works, and so everything is tuned. Yay. So that was a nice surprise. Little Christmas present for me. Okie doke. So, let's start off with something very basic. We need a sequence that's going from rings into clouds, and we'll just make clouds be completely dry for now. Let's turn off all the stuff on clouds so that we start from a blank slate. By the way, this is clouds running with the Parasites firmware. So yeah. Okay, so let's do something really basic. Let's just use marbles because it's a good way to do things. We will out of the X into octave. We'll go out of 1 into strum, and that will just give us some sort of basic pattern. So got these fancy pants new little tiny cables, which are nice. That'll go out and in here, and then we'll come out of clouds. Mixer. Oh, this is obviously way too loud already. Yeah, one thing you have to do with clouds is set your input gain. Don't want it to be clipping. Oh, and this is also dampening way down. It's turned way up for tuning like I did last time. So and let's not have reverb for a change, because we're going to get that through clouds for the most part. Okay, so very, very basic. I think we'll start with going over the clouds modes. Actually, well, we'll do for each cloud mode, we'll do all the rings modes into that clouds mode. How about that? So, gotta pull out my handy dandy little thing that tells me what modes are, because the U-burst has very confusing lights. Okay, so you press both buttons to switch modes. Let's see, that would be Resonester. That's Oliverb. So this is special processor. All right, we will start with the basic mode. This is the granular processor mode. It's not turned on at all right now because you use the blend knob along with this right-hand button to choose the parameter you want to change, and there's sort of little indicators for it. The ones on the left. So the first one is the dry wet. The second one is stereo spread. Yeah, the next one is feedback, and the next one is reverb. So the icons might make sense to you. I always have to look it up again, but so first we need some dry wet. We'll just do 50-50. So this is the granular processor side of clouds. It's basically taking small slices of the sound that you're sending into it and playing them again. Position determines where this grain starts from, but let's not change with that. Let's go with size first. Right now we are taking a very, very small grain size. That's why it sort of sounds almost like a reverb right now. Now there's the opposite. You can see it's sort of almost acting as some kind of very long delay or looper now. Let's go right in the middle. Actually, it's even easier to show position if we're here. So if we go size at the largest, you can sort of scrub through position. So it's almost like playing on tape, but it's, yeah, so you can sort of scrub through things. What else we got? Pitch. Pitch shifts the grains, so. It's actually having an interesting effect that I didn't expect. Maybe because of the texture density. Yeah. So you can't talk about any of these parameters without talking about all the other parameters simultaneously. So size of the grain, position, where in the grain, the starting position of the grain from what it's recorded. Density is the rate of grain generation. So when you turn it left, it generates grains that are evenly spaced. So you'll see if we can get it to sound like that. As you turn it further, it generates more and more and more and more and more grains. Sort of gives you that granular sound. But you can tell they're being generated with evenly spacing. But if you go to the other side, turn density up the other way, they come out sort of at random. There's it all the way up on the random side versus on the other side. It's just different textures. And if you put it in the middle, it generates no grains whatsoever, so you won't hear anything. The other thing is the texture. This basically sets an amp envelope for each of the grains that get generated. So let's have it generate some ones. Some degree of regularity. You can hear this is sort of affecting the way the sound comes in. It's actually interesting. This, I don't know if you all hear the same thing, but turning texture to the right sort of serves to make the sound very stereo wide and sounding like it's in the background. Anyway, okay, so those are the basic controls. The other one is the freeze, which allows you to basically capture the buffer. I need to capture it. Right, as the sound is playing. Now we've captured this buffer sound. It is essentially a freeze. Big surprise. You can also hold it and reverse it. And it flashes. In this case, it's not going to really be much. Alright, and then you get to the other things, which are the dry, wet, stereo spread, etc. So I usually turn the stereo spread way up. I like a little bit of feedback. You have to be very careful with the feedback control. It goes nuts if you give it too much. Like, this is, you can already hear it starting to clip, yeah. Let's turn you off. Let's turn you off before you explode. Alright, so a bit of feedback. And then Clouds has a very lush reverb. I think we actually even still need to turn down the feedback was a little too far. Just a little bit of feedback. But yeah, lots of interesting different textures you can get out of the sound by moving the texture knob. You can also scrub through position, like I said before. That's an option, but I don't usually do that. Size can be interesting, but I prefer texture, to be honest. Alright. Yeah, I don't actually use the granular mode all that frequently, surprisingly. The other thing that you could do, by the way, is send a gate into trig, and that will trigger a grain to be generated. But yeah, I don't do that often. So let's put other modes of rings in. So as for rings, there are multiple modes. The polyphony right now is in single note polyphony. We can make that, I believe, 2 voices and then 4 voices. Lock these into a pattern on marbles a little bit, just so we get something that's a little more repetitive. So now voices can overlap on marbles. So, and then there's a bunch of different, or not marbles, on rings. There's a few different modes. This is the string mode, I think. The green one is like the simulating a drum head, I think. No, it's the red one. I don't remember. They all make different sounds. Look in the manual. I thought it actually sounded pretty good with the strings. I will actually need to pull up the manual to remember the alternative modes that I don't use very often. So, then I can give you the real names of these modes. Right. Green is the modal resonator, which is the way a string or plate absorbs certain frequencies or rings at other frequencies when you pluck a string, strike a drum, or blow in a tube. Sympathetic strings is like a sitar mode, basically. And the red mode is a modulated or inharmonic string, extended car plus strong. So, they also have alternative modes. Where are they? Oh, are they not in the official manual? Got the Easter egg modes. Oh, no, that's Disastrous Peace. Ah, there's the alternate ones. Okay. So, there's a couple things that you can do. One is this threesome mode, which I've never actually used before, but it's you hold down the polyphony button for a few seconds, and it basically causes the notes to bounce back and forth between odd and even outputs. You can see them here. I think it goes odd, even, odd, even, odd, even. So if you wanted to take rings out and send it to 2 different things, basically in a rhythmic pattern, you could totally do that. And I should probably do that more often, because that's kind of cool. Alright, so the other modes. Let's do the one that works for this particular one. So you long press on the mode button. So now this is in Western chords mode. So you choose the chord with the structure or the shape knob. You can sort of hear it if I turn up the damping. So basically now it's tuned to a chord rather than fifths and octaves. I have used this mode before, but I don't remember how you determine which chord is which. Alright, let's go out of this mode. Alright, other modes. We can go into the red mode, and the red mode, if you hold it down longer, and it flashes. Now this is car plus verb, which is basically the same model, but it adds in a reverb, which is not controllable, but it could be nice if you don't have any other effects modules. So if we were to now turn down mix on clouds. So you can hear that that definitely has reverb on it versus no reverb there. So yeah, that's a kind of cool option. Let's just turn back up. And then the last one is when it's green. And this... Oh, shoot, I didn't hold it long enough. This is now a 2-operator FM. Which is basically you change a bunch of things. You change frequency ratios with the shape. Brightness changes the FM index. Dampening changes the FM index and amplitude decay. And position is the feedback path. This mode I have never used. I don't understand FM synthesis enough to be able to do it with small knobs and things that aren't well labeled. So yeah. Now other things is the Easter egg mode, which I have never tried. And we're going to see if we can set it, because in order to set this into Easter egg mode, oh, you have to turn a bunch of knobs, including turning frequency, so I have to untune this. Oh, that's okay. I'll do it for you all, and then I can retune it back to the other rings. So, alright. In order to go into this disastrous piece mode, you go frequency fully counterclockwise, structure fully clockwise, brightness fully counterclockwise, dampening in the center, and position fully clockwise. And then the attenuator knobs, the brightness attenuator goes fully counterclockwise, frequency goes fully clockwise, dampening goes fully counterclockwise, structure goes fully clockwise, and position goes fully counterclockwise. Then you press and hold the polyphony button. There we go. Wait, maybe? Or did it just drop out of it? Hang on. Must have, because this is weird. I've never heard rings make this sound before. So this is an organ or string machine synth. Up to 12 notes and 6 oscillators per note tuned 1 octave apart. So the polyphony button chooses the chord size, apparently. These are big chords now. Frequency is the root note. Structure is a chord type. brightness scans through various registrations or combination of gains for the 6 oscillators. So let's see about this. Position is the FX mode. Whoa. It's fun that got picked up by as a grain in clouds there. Dampening is decay time, then attack time. I'm gonna have to look at this mode more, because I've never played with it before, but it's generating some interesting stuff. Alright. That's all the modes of rings. Let's go back to a more basic one. We're going to steal this other oscillator. So that we can do the modes of clouds now. And this oscillator is tuned. Tuned higher than I expected, but that's interesting. Anyway. Alright, so the other modes of clouds. We already did granular processor. Now this should be the pitch shifter or time stretch. I haven't used this one very often either, but all of these parameters should fall off because they sometimes are different per mode. You could probably already hear the difference there. So, this is again taking a sample of the audio, determined by size. And then pitch it down. Density is for granular diffusion, which you can hear gives it some more stereo depth. Texture is a filter. It's low pass on the left. Basically kills it. And band pass on the right. Let's give this a bit of stereo again. A little bit of feedback. Reverb. Freeze actually makes it loop. It appears to have just... Yeah, we're in the right mode. I was gonna say, it appears to have just like captured sound at the time, but... Ah, here we go. So now you can really scrub through this. We turn the... Go all the way, 100% wet. I can scrub through things, right? Both of them. I don't really use this mode either. Actually, I would say I use the granular mode more than this mode even. Let's do the mode that I do use a bunch, which is looping delay. So, it's a similar sort of deal here. Position chooses the point of the loop start. Size chooses how long the loop is. Pitch is the pitch. Density is diffusion again. And texture is once again a low pass filter on one side, band pass filter on the other side. And then it's the same blend parameter controls as well. reverb. Again, this is freeze the loop, reverse the loop. You get that cool tape effect, of course. Do a real long one. This is it, just the wet signal. And it's reversed. It's handy to add a little bit extra to things. If I made marbles, turn up the rate a bit. Of course, the thing is, with position, if you have position set all the way left, you're not really going to hear anything because it's replaying the loop from the starting position constantly on this same sequence. So it never really changes. It sort of just doubles up your sound, but I could like pitch it down and now you hear it, right? But better to choose somewhere else in the position. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention, you can reverse the buffer without freezing it. Just hold it down. Now it's flashing, it's in reverse. Just make this a little less all over the place, this sequence. This a bit more gain. I'm not sure why it was so loud last time. So yeah, I wouldn't modulate position here, but you could modulate density a little bit. Texture if you want to. But I usually leave this as a pretty static setup when I'm using it in looping delay mode. But like if you then add another reverb onto it, it starts to get pretty lush. Just messing with it, but let's try it with something even more interesting. Turn it down for a bit. Off. This could even be very interesting if you turn the mix all the way up. No, it's definitely better without the mix all the way up. We've got this nice kind of pad going in the background there, right? Up now. So I personally think that a lot of the classic clouds or rings into cloud sounds comes from this looping delay rather than the granular mode, because I mean, here let's do the granular mode and see if we can get something similar. Like, you get somewhat similar, but it's not quite, I don't know, for me it's not quite as good. Might be this might actually be better on full wet. Let's see. Yeah, you can get decent beds of sound out of the granular side of things, actually. This was a slightly different effect than the other one, but the looping delay, but I prefer the looping delay, personally. I find it easier to work with, at least. Alright, let's try the other one that sometimes is very screechy, so hopefully it won't be this time. We're going to turn the blend off and all that junk to start, which is the spectral processor mode. This is the classic one that I did my rings into clouds mode on, thinking it was the granular one, and it wasn't. And I've never been able to reproduce that sound ever again since. I am not even going to try to explain this. If you see the description, it's that for this mode. It is very complicated, but basically it's taking audio in and like resynthesizing it or processing it in some way to, yeah, it's doing resynthesis on the audio. So let's turn off the external reverb for a sec. Turn on the bullshit. See? There we go. So there's I'm just going to tweak knobs because otherwise it's really hard to say what any of this does, other than you have to be careful of one of these knobs. I think it's density. Either density or texture. Yeah, it's texture that starts to get out of control if you go past 12 o'clock, so be careful. It can make some super creepy sounds, but if you have to be very careful to listen and then turn knobs back, because it can also almost self-oscillate out of control if you're not careful. Like it's about to do right now. So you have to be careful with this spectral thing. I have, like I said, in my video, I managed to get it to work into something that was really cool once, and then I've never managed to do it again. Just go. you go all the way wet, it is interesting in that you don't really get anything like the sound you started out with. It's completely, well, resynthesized, right? Gotta be so careful with that texture knob. What is it actually? Let's see if the texture knob is something that I can explain. Oh. Yeah, no, I can't. I don't know enough about spectral analysis to know what the heck that does. Needless to say, the right-hand side is testy. What is density? Oh, just a bunch of more resynthesis jargon that I don't understand. Yeah, this mode, if you tweak around with it, I mean, I found a cool combination with the sound that I had come into it, because this is very dependent on the sound coming into it. Like, this should change drastically. We change the rings mode. But now this is almost percussive, right? We had something. Yeah, like what the heck? Super bizarre noises. Oh, what is it? It's weird. Sounds like something feeding. Or purring. So that's one mode. What about the red mode? Now this is just sounding like a huge reverb delay, right? Wacky. Alright, let's try the next mode. So the next mode is one that's only available in the Parasites firmware, so make sure you install that if you do get a Clouds. If you've seen before, by the way, the installation of firmware on all mutable instruments things is quite annoying because you have to play an audio file into the interface at a certain level. So you typically, your computer won't be able to put out something that's high enough level, so you really need to like come in through like a line input or something like that to bring it up to modular level. Otherwise it doesn't work, so it can be annoying. All right, so Oliver mode is the next one. This is basically like a super advanced, interesting reverb. So that's 50-50 mix. It's already off the charts. Hang on, I'm gonna turn a bunch of stuff down. So position is pre-delay. Pretty typical for a reverb, right? Size is reverb size. Density is the decay. It's a pretty big reverb already. texture is, sorry, the filter. Is again a low pass to no filter to band pass. The other things, some of these things change in this mode. So this bottom light as usual is the dry wet. This top light is no longer the reverb, but it's a modulation amount. So there's a bit of this is diffusion. So you can hear the difference between it's not smeared at all versus now it's super smeared, right? So different ways of making reverb there. Then you do this modulation thing. This one is modulation speed, and the last one is modulation amount. You'll hear it sound wacky. Do an audio rate speed. Anyway, this can just modify the reverb a bit. It's almost like a tremolo, almost. Stray hair. Yeah, anyway, I don't use this reverb that often either. It just, sometimes it sounds a little strange to me. This, by the way, is now infinite decay. So basically like a freeze of the reverb buffer, for all intents and purposes. Oh, and of course you can pitch shift to give it a sort of shimmer reverb style thing, but as you can hear, not really the same. So what happens if we double up the reverbs here? Gets a little ridiculous. Anyway, that's Oliver mode, and then the final mode is a weird one. We're gonna, I believe, not plug rings into this, because I don't remember exactly how this works, but it is a bit weird. Resonator is a resonator, like rings is, but it has a bunch of different odd controls to it. Let me just stay in this mode. Let's turn everything down again. So, right. We have some very strange things in this. This is scatter, right? Okay. So, let's put rings through it. You can already hear weird, right? It actually works better with just a burst of noise sometimes. But let's do rings. Since this is rings through clouds, we'll do rings. So position is the timbre or duration of the noise. So it's interesting that this is so hard panned. Size is the chord. You could hear in parts it was almost quantized. There, I think that might be fifth. Pitch as it always is. Density is a bit of the decay sound. So it's sort of performing a resonation on rings. It's almost like running rings into rings in a way. So other interesting stuff that this can do are these, for these modes. This first one is scatter, which causes it to be played almost like you're strumming a guitar. If you listen, if I turn the density down, you'll hear it more. You can sort of hear each of the individual notes in the chord that's being played by the resonator every single time the rings goes through it. So that's scatter. This is harmonics. So you can sort of hear the guitar-y harmonic sounds coming in. And then stereo output. This is the one we really wanted. Oh, that's so much better. Then there's random modulation of comb time. So you get some very not guitar, like now we're getting into almost brass sound territory. I have not messed with this one that much. There's also this concept of switching voices with the press button. I don't get it, to be honest. I think that there are some good videos on exactly how some of these alternative modes work, but let's put some different ring stuff into it. Sort of got us a chord. Of course, the problem is that none of this is changing pitch alongside rings, right? Because rings is just being used as a resonation source. So if we if this will be if we take rings out here and we put it into volt per octave. Now we've got something. Ooh. I'm trying to see if I can hear the difference on the different voices or whatever. Got a sort of cool, almost 8-bitty sound going on with this now. Some reverb on it. It sounds so out of place having an 8-bit sound going through some massive reverb. Oh. That's sort of cooler. Okay. I'm happy with that. That sounds more interesting than I expected to get out of this mode, actually. I guess it really needed rings in a much more simple state, because right now that left rings is pretty much in the tuning state where you just get like a single tone and none of the overtones or any of that sort of stuff. Anyway, that's interesting. Let's see if there's anything else I missed. I think that I actually covered everything already. Yeah, I'm considering whether I keep clouds, replace it with something that someone else mentioned in the last stream. I think Jajora mentioned about Supercell, and its equivalent microcell, the smaller 14 HP one or something like that. But I don't know. Clouds has a tenuous position in my rack overall, I would say. There's a lot of other things that do the things that I use it for, and either do them in a more user accessible way or do other things that I could also use on top of them. So I don't know. We'll see how long it lasts. My rack is going to be undergoing a whole bunch of changes in the next little while, because my assimilator was meant to be here today. Didn't show up. Thanks, Canada Post. But I also did finally get my hands on a TET, so there's going to be a stream on that for sure. And I finished planning out what I want the rest of my rack to look like for now. We'll see how long that lasts. Usually I rearrange things very quickly. Back in the granular mode again. All sorts of crazy stuff. Oh, of course. Still have Wolfer Octave plugged in. this will work. White noise into the trig. I thought that triggered a grain, but might have been wrong. Makes some interesting distorted tones. That makes for an interesting one, because I think trig this is in looping delay mode. I think trig in looping delay mode triggers the play of the loop that's recorded. Delay is actually clipping. I don't know if it's something in my house or this sound, but I hear a very, very low bass tone coming out of this too. Or I'm going crazy. That's also a possibility. Anyway, so we made some cool sounds. That was pretty much all the possibilities of rings through clouds. It's, yes, a cliched combo, but it does have some cool stuff to it, as you heard. Again, in my opinion, some of the modes are much more useful than other modes. Specifically, I like the looping delay mode, the granular mode to some degree, and the Oliver mode sometimes. So yeah, hope that was helpful. I think I'm going to call it here. It seems like Mondays are becoming an unpopular day for people to be able to be around to watch the stream. So keep an eye out on my Twitch page, and I'll mention it in the next stream on Wednesday too. I might change what day I do these Monday streams. Maybe I'll make it Tuesday or Thursday or something along those lines instead. Yeah, because it's much more fun to stream when I'm talking to a bunch of you and not just talking to myself. Anyway, I hope someone found this useful. And I will leave that there for now. I will see you on Wednesday, where hopefully, Canada Post willing, cross your fingers, I will have an assimilator and we will play around with it. I might do just playing around from an open box with no understanding what's going on, because that might be cool. Yeah, alright. Well, I will see some of you hopefully then. Take care.